give you an idea of how laughter has helped me along. When I moved to Denver, Colorado in 1984, I moved from Ohio, and I didn't have a place to stay. When I left Ohio, I had a suitcase, but it got lost on the Greyhound trip to Denver. So all I had was a duffel bag full of underwear and a sweatsuit that I was wearing. And I found a job at a temporary company as a clerk. You know, I did a lot of clerical work. I could type, 10 key by touch filing. So I found work. And then I found a job at an insurance company, the Denver Tech Center. And that's where I discovered a passion for writing. And I just want to harp on that word passion. I'm going to fast forward real quick to 2004, August of 2004, actually August 7th of 2004. I remember the day for two reasons. One, it was the day before John Elway was going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and it was also my sister's 40th birthday, and I'm sure she appreciates me out there on her age. But on that day, I got a phone call. Denver used to host a Grand Prix auto race in downtown Denver, and it wasn't going as well as they had hoped in terms of getting the masses of people to attend. So the organizers came to the various news outlets and asked if we would contribute some stories, write about the event, publicize the event. So when they got to me, I said, well, if you give me an interview with Paul Newman, I'll do it. I'll put it in my column. And they were like, yeah, don't call us, we'll call you. And so I said, well, here's my number. I gave them my phone number, and on August 7, 2004, that morning, my phone rings, I pick it up, and I've got the TV on. I don't know what was on, but the TV's blaring, and it wasn't, like cell phone at that time. It was like my house phone. I still had a landline, still do actually. And so it's Paul Newman's voice. I know Paul Newman's voice when I hear it. I've never spoken to Paul Newman, but I know Paul Newman's voice. And I'm freaking out. I'm reaching for a notepad, trying to find a pen, and he's all cool. He goes, so you're Sam Adams? And I go, yeah, I'm Sam Adams. He goes, I know you hear this all the time, but you're a great beer. I just gotta ask you, are you an amber or a lager? And I stopped looking for my pen and pad, and I said, Paul, if you saw me, you'd say I'm more of a Bach. He started laughing, and I started laughing. And what was supposed to be a newspaper reporter interview with a guy that owns a racing team, because Paul Newman's racing team was coming to town, and that was the reason why I wanted him. It turned into just very conversational. He was asking me questions about my life, and I was asking him, and he brought up the word passion. Because I asked him, I said, why would a guy with Academy Awards, and it's so nice to be in a room full of people who know who Paul Newman is. Whenever I bring this up to kids, they were like, oh, this sounds interesting, man. And I go, yeah, but here's this guy who's got Academy Awards. He's an accomplished actor, but he's in auto racing, dangerous sport. And I said, why would you do that? And he goes, because it's a passion of mine. He says, I got two passions. And he said, wait a minute, you're writing this? And I go, yeah. He goes, okay, I got three passions. My wife. He says, she's coming with me. If you don't write that, I'm in trouble. But he said acting, and he says auto racing. He says, man, once I realized that auto racing was my passion, I had to go for it. And just hearing him talk about passion made me reflect on the passions that I've had in my life in terms of careers. And now I'll go back to the 1980s, the late 1980s, working at an insurance company and developing this passion for writing. I used to sit at my desk. As a clerk, you get these tasks to perform, and basically they gave me a stack of applications, insurance applications, and I had to go through them to make sure everything is there. And if there's something missing on your application, I pull that one out and point it out to the underwriters, and it goes like that. It's very boring. So it's basically look, stamp, go. Look, stamp, go. Well, I learned how to do 8 hours worth of work in 6 hours. Not to say I was lazy, I just didn't feel like saying, I need more. So I used to sit at my typewriter and doodle for the other 2 hours. And that doodling was writing a sports newsletter in my eyes. It was just me typing up stuff that I thought was gonna happen in sports during the course of a given week. And I would pass it out to my buddies. And one of my buddies said, man, you think you know so much, why don't you go write for a newspaper? And he threw it back at me. A month later, I left that company, not because of what he said, but I just was looking for more money. And that company just happened to be in downtown Denver, and it was a couple blocks over from the Denver Post building. And I remembered what he said, and I took something that I wrote to the Denver Post building, and that's how I got in the door as a reporter. Now, they didn't hire me full time. Matter of fact, they said, look, we just don't hire people off the street. Come on, man. You know, and I said, that's okay. They gave me the number to the high school sports editor and said, if you're really serious, call this guy. He's always looking for help. As a matter of fact, I started doing that, and I'm thinking as I stand here about Colorado Springs, and one of the scariest nights of my life happened going to cover it. Air Academy was playing, Air Academy had a guy named Rodney Zimmerman in the other school, Wasson. They had a kid named Craig Conger. He was 2 big dudes, 6'9", 6'10". Both of them ended up playing in the Pac-10. And I went to cover them, and I was driving a 1986 Dodge Aries K, the most blandest car you could ever drive. And it was winter time, and I didn't have we didn't have GPS back then. We had you better know where you're going. And I was driving, and it was snowing. It was really bad. It was icy and snowy, and I almost missed the exit. You know, like the snow. It was snowing so bad that the snow had covered the sign. And then at the last minute, I went, oh, that's the exit. And I turned, and the car went into a spin. And I just held onto the wheel and was waiting for that bam or something. And it went around for like 30 seconds, and it just stopped. And I went, oh, I'm going to be late. Got to the game. But anyway, I covered a lot of high school stuff. And in 1991, there was a job opening to cover the Denver Nuggets at the Post, and I wanted the job, but I wasn't full-time. The full-time writer said, hey man, you should go for that job. Woody Page was the sports editor, and I went to his office, and he said, I like what you're doing, kid, but don't quit your day job. And a couple months later, I quit my day job. I never told him. And then a year later, he called me in the office, not knowing that I quit my day job. He says, man, you've been doing a lot of good stuff. We found a job for you. Just don't screw us. That's the nice version of what he said. So I was on full time. And then a year after that, he called me in the office and he says, you've been doing a great job. We're gonna put you in the Denver Broncos beat. It's the most visible beat in the paper. Everybody will be reading you. It's a lot of pressure, but I think you can handle it. And I said, well, I don't want the job. And he says, well, why wouldn't you want the job? Are you crazy? And I said, no, I'm from Cleveland. And if you know the history, the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos, man, I'm not going out there and look at John Elway. Something's going to happen to him if I go out there. But he says, well, I'll give the job to somebody else. And I went, no, I'll do it. And every day I went out there, and every day I watched practice, and every day I looked, and I said to myself, there's John Elway, and something's going to happen to you. And as fate would have it, on the schedule that year, the Broncos played the Browns in Cleveland. Great. You know, the newspaper pays for all the travel. I'm going to see my mom. I'm going to get home cooking. I don't have to stay at the hotel with the other writers. It's going to be great. The bad news is I know how the story's going to end. So the Friday before the game, the media gets to go in the locker room one last time to interview any players. And as luck would have it, the only 2 people in the locker room are myself and John Elway. And the little voice in my head said, leave him alone, man, leave him alone. But you never listen to the little voice in your head. And I walked over to him, I said, John, just so you know, I'm from Cleveland. My family's from Cleveland. My mother doesn't like you. My sisters don't like you. My cousins don't like you. My friends don't like you. And I'm just being honest with you, bro. I don't like you either. And he said, you were born in Cleveland? And I said, yeah, and I did it definitively. Yeah. He says, well, I'm sorry that happened to you. And that's not how I envisioned a little confrontation going. So I went out and I left the locker room. I was, man, John's got this little cackle for a laugh, so he's laughing at me. And so fast forward, we get to Cleveland, and the Broncos beat the Browns, because they always do. And at the end of the game, the media's in the locker room, and they're waiting, and most of them are waiting by John's locker. He was in the shower, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to stand there and wait for him. I'm going to talk to some other players, and when John comes out and he's ready to talk, I'll go over. So John comes out, dries off, starts dressing, starts talking to the media, and I walk over, and these guys are asking all these questions about what happened in the game. You know, tell us about the touchdown pass. Tell us about the second touchdown pass. Yeah, finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I just hollered out, "Hey, man, you happy about this?" And he was buttoning up his shirt. I'll never forget. He's buttoning up his shirt. He goes, "Yeah, well, I knew you were a native here. I did it for your mom, your sister." And keep in mind, the other guys in the media weren't in the locker room fight, so they didn't know. So one guy's like, "Hey, man, is he talking about your mother?" And for about 3 seconds, John and I just made like this hard eye contact, you know, just this like, and then we just started laughing, uncontrollably laughing, and nobody knows what's going on. It was like this moment between us, and for me, the moment was this, and I never told him this, and never have told him this, but the moment was, like, this guy is such a competitor. He wants to win so bad, he doesn't care if he hurts your mother's feelings. And it changed how I watched other players and watched other games, and, you know, like, who's the competitor? I was looking for the competitors. Who has that desire? You know, and it made it fun. It gave me more passion to do my job, okay? And that was the early 90s. And into the mid-90s, I wound up working for the Rocky Mountain News and came to cover the Broncos for the news. And I still had that passion, but I started to lose it in 2000 when they sent me to cover the Olympics in Sydney. That sounds like a great assignment, but the whole time I was over there, all they wanted me to do was look for controversial things, you know, who's on performance-enhancing drugs, who's doing something illegal. The fun was gone. I just wanted to write about who won gold medals, you know, but now I have to examine why they possibly won. And I started to lose that passion. So to get back to Paul Newman, hearing him say 4 years later, you know, talk about passion, it made me think, am I passionate about what I'm doing? Well, I wasn't thinking about quitting my job, is what he said years ago. I wasn't thinking about quitting my day job, but I had started doing stand-up comedy, and it was fun, but I wasn't passionate about it. But when the Rocky Mountain News closed in 2009, and I had to find something to do, 49 years old, and life pretty much is starting over, it's amazing how one door closes, another door opens. February 2009, Rocky Mountain News closes. June 2009, I'm entered into a contest called the Great American Comedy Festival. It's held in Norfolk, Nebraska. I don't know if anybody's here from Nebraska. Nebraska? Wow, thank you for raising that. Most people don't admit it, man. That's right, man. Where in Nebraska are you from?
Duke City. And you know exactly where that is, right? Duke City, Nebraska.
Look.
About 50 miles west of Grand Island.
Let me tell you something. I am internationally known in Nebraska. When Wayne Newton is to Las Vegas, that's me in Nebraska. I've been to more towns. Hershey, Nebraska, exit 164 off Interstate 80. Some things you just don't forget. McCook, Nebraska, they put my picture on the front page of the McCook Daily Gazette, which sounds cool, except it was next to a headline that said, "Children allegedly locked in kennel." Bad placement. Yeah, so the Great American Comedy Festival was held in Norfolk, which is Johnny Carson's hometown, or home, you know, as a childhood hometown. He wasn't born there, but he spent the majority of his childhood there. And when I was entered into the contest, I didn't know there were two divisions, a pro and an amateur. I thought it was just one, and I was in it. Well, I found out I was in the amateur portion, which, you know, really in the grand scheme of things, the professionals that were in the contest, they all have been on HBO, Showtime, Letterman, Leno. They had major credits, so I could see why I was in the other division. But on the flip side of that, if I lose in that amateur division because I saw some of the competitors, I even asked them, I said, "Look, am I the 12th grader in the room full of 3rd graders?" And they went, "Yep." And I thought, ooh, if I lose, this is really embarrassing. So I won the amateur contest, got a $500 check, got a nice little gold statue, got a consultation with the guy who books the comics for David Letterman at that time. So it was, not a bad deal. But somebody dropped out of the pro competition at the last minute. And rather than going to their list, they had 20 competitors. Rather than going to 21, they said, let's put the amateur guy in there. Now, if you follow college basketball, you're gonna know this reference. If you follow college basketball, when they do the basketball tournament, the number 1 seed overall gets to play the absolute worst team in the tournament, like the 64th or 65th seed. Well, I was like seed number 65. Like no chance, but we'll put them in there. And long story short, I finished second. And so, that for me made me think, you know what, I'm gonna try comedy full time. And that's why I ended up going to all these places. There were a lot of people from Nebraska in the audience and bringing me to all these little towns Valentine, Nebraska, population 12. Yeah, man, I do shows there, man. I get on stage, I look around, I feel like a raisin on top of a mountain of Cool Whip. But I do the shows. So comedy is reinvigorated me. It's given me a new passion, and now it's just a matter of doing it and just every day trying to get better. But I'll close it up here. Like I mentioned before, when you say there's something wrong in your life, find a reason to laugh about it. When I turn on the news, there's some things that just aren't funny. I'll leave y'all with a funny line and I'll close on a serious note. Whenever I get down, I think about my grandfather, and that's where I got my name from, Samuel Adams, not the beer. My grandfather, the great American beer drinker, if you will. He, older people like to give advice. I know this because I'm getting older. I give it to my son every day, and my son is 27. And no, his name is not Sam Adams. My mom's still mad. His name is Guinness. He's 27, and I gave him the same advice that my dad, whose name was Sam Adams, gave me when I was 25. I lost my dad when I was 25. But one of the last bits of advice is something he gave me that my grandfather gave him. He says, I'm going to tell you the 5 keys to a healthy, happy life for every man, so write this down. He said, key number 1, you find a good woman, you hold on to her. He said, key number 2, you find a good job, you hold on to it. He said, key number 3, you save your money. He says, key number 4, you treat people the way you want to be treated. And I got all antsy when he told me, and my son, like me, got all antsy when I was telling him, well, what's number 5, Dad? And I said, hold on, you may not like this. But he said, key number 5, if you can help it, don't have kids. Because of nothing else, especially when I see the news and I see all these things that are happening, violence is happening all over the country in a number of ways. I would just say, if you don't remember anything that I said today, just remember cue number 4, and that's treat people the way you want to be treated. Hopefully you want to be treated nice and with respect, and I think if we just start a chain reaction, you treat somebody with niceness and respect, and then the next person treats with niceness and respect, and so on and so forth, maybe it'll catch on, and maybe that'll help curtail some of these things that are happening, so that our kids and grandkids will have a much better place to live in the future. And as far as looking for passions in life, like I said, just embrace them. Maybe you're fine doing what you do right now, and that's okay. But if there's something that you've been wanting to do, don't wait too long to do it, and do it with some passion. And I always hear people say they can't wait to get the last laugh, and that sounds so vindictive. I want to get the last laugh. Don't try to get the last laugh. Just try to give the next laugh. The more laughs we have, the better. So that's what I have for y'all this afternoon. Y'all been a great audience to talk to. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if there's any questions.